So this is section 2 of chapter 13. In this, we're going to discuss the early history of the Ghana Empire, analyze how the Ghana Empire led to its peak, and evaluate the fall of the Ghana Empire. So that's going to be what this whole section is about. Among the earliest people in Western Africa were the Soninke. After 300 AD, the Soninke started to band together to protect themselves from nomadic herders. And this would be the beginnings of Ghana, kind of forming a government, forming, protection, establishing themselves as a group of people and protecting themselves. Ghana lies between the Sahara in the north and the deep forest in the south. The exchange of gold and salt sometimes followed a specific process called silent barter. Silent barter is basically a process in which people exchange goods without contacting each other directly. Now, a silent barter deal would go like this. Say you were trading salt for gold. You would take your slab of salt, you would take it, put it on the banks of the river, and you would leave. You would come back later, and someone would have left gold and taken that salt. And that's kind of how it works. Remember, the barter system we talked about in geography is where you have a form of economy where you trade one item for another item. You barter. And there's no money transaction usually, even though gold can be established as money. It's an item in this type of trade. There's really no money given. It's like, I'll trade you this if you'll give me this, and you just trade one thing for the other. That's kind of the idea behind it. So they would trade salt and gold, and it was silent because you didn't actually deal with the people. It'd be pretty great for COVID because you can just drop it off, and then, it's almost like, in a way, like curbside pickup. You drop it off, you leave, the person comes, gets it, leaves your thing, you come get it back, and then it's done. So that's how the silent barter system works. In the silent barter system, Ghana salt traders would leave a slab of salt in a riverbank where gold miners would leave a fair amount of gold. As the trade empire grew, the rulers of Ghana took over. They also got involved in the slave trade with buying and selling slaves. Now, this is how the slave trade is going to be established. Usually it starts off as prisoners of war being enslaved because for centuries the slave system was in place in Africa. They would take prisoners of war, people that were guilty of crimes, and they would turn them into slaves, and then they would sell them to somebody else. Now, slavery in Africa wasn't like what it would become in the United States and the Caribbean. Usually the people could earn or buy their freedom eventually. It wasn't until the Europeans started getting involved that it would become a lifelong thing, that like it would become. And the Portuguese and the Spanish really kind of start that, and the English and the Dutch and all the rest of them get involved with it also. By 800, Ghana was firmly in control of West Africa's trade routes. Ghanaians later wanted to find a way to benefit from all the people coming to do trade, so they decided to make them pay taxes on imports and exports. The people of Ghana also had to pay taxes, and the neighboring tribes also had to pay tribute. And Ghana's gold increased their wealth as well. The rulers of Ghana banned anyone else from having gold nuggets, and the common people could only have gold dust. So the leaders of Ghana are coming up with ways to fund their governments through taxes and things like that, but they're becoming very wealthy off of this. Part of Ghana's wealth went to support its powerful army. Ghana's kings allowed conquered rulers to retain much of their power. And one leader was Tunkamanen, and he was the ruler that led the empire of Ghana to its peak. So Ghana had a powerful army. They used this army to keep their power and to grow more power, and Tunkamanen is one of these leaders. In the mid-1000s, Ghana was rich and powerful. By the early 1200s, the empire had collapsed. A group of North African Muslims called the Almoravids attacked Ghana in the 1060s. It cut the Ghana trade and weakened the empire. Now, when it comes to a trade empire that benefits a lot from trade, if you can cut off their trade routes, it's easy to defeat them because that's what their main source of income is, and which for Ghana it was. You cut off their trade and there's nothing else they can do. It weakened the empire and caused them to decline. A second part of the decline of Ghana was that the Almoravids allowed their herds to overgraze, hurting the soil. Now, and when it comes to farming, if you have an animal and they eat all the way down to the soil and pull up the grass and things like that, it can cause the soil quality to not be receiving nutrients that it needs, and it can hurt the soil, causing it to ultimately decline. A third factor is that a group of people rose up in rebellion and took over Ghana. These factors caused Ghana to fall apart. So the fact that the Almoravids came in and cut off their trade, the fact that they allowed their herds to overgraze, and it basically took the nutrients out of the soil so you couldn't grow as much stuff there, and the fact that people rose up in rebellion is what leads to the fall of Ghana. And this kind of gives you a timeline of Ghana. I'm not going to go over all these, but it shows you a timeline of what happens in Ghana. And that leads to the end of section 2, and we will continue this with section 3.